Welcome to Slay Your Dragons with Compassion podcast, which I'm doing in conjunction with my friends at Online Events. And a big mention here for Erwin Santiago, who's our sound engineer, who's done every one of these with me. And it's really nice to have some great technical support. So thank you, Erwin. So this is a series which explores the adversity that people have been through, the changes in their lives, and the practices they've undertaken as a way of becoming whole, as a way of finding themselves and finding a new direction for themselves. And often people find themselves in having one or two extraordinary situations in their lives which have turned their lives into a different direction. So I'm very pleased to welcome today a good friend. As you can see, he's in my home as well. So Oliver Cowmeadow, and he is the principal of the Devon School of Shiatsu and the Devon School of Macrobiotics. And his work has been very selfless and very much about creating an environment where people learn the skills that he's studied of Asian techniques for both food and body. But today we'll be looking at very much at a personal level at the changes in his life. I've known Oliver for probably 40 years, 30, 40 years, a long time. And I've seen, Oliver, quite a lot of changes in you as we've gone along. But you had one particular thing that actually turned your life in a different direction. You had what we've talked about before that you called a spiritual awakening. And I know that that's for real. You do walk your talk, and you do, from everything I've ever seen in you, you're in a place of service. But something happened for you quite some time ago. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to, Malcolm, and thanks for asking me to come on this podcast. It was in my mid-30s. I was working very hard with macrobiotics, diet, setting up schools, and I was also doing a lot of driving between Penzance and Totnes, about 100 miles. Young man driving quite fast, often at night. And there was a whole kind of series of experiences that I had, which, should we go into all of that?
Why not? Yes.
So the kind of beginning of it all was driving late one night, very tired, and observing that I couldn't concentrate on the road and think at the same time. Every time a thought came in, I lost my attention on the road. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just stop thinking. And that was my first experience of going into the kind of space of no mind, no thoughts going. And I thought, hey, this is great. I'm one with my car, I'm one with the road. Very high experience in my youthful naivety. I thought, hey, this is enlightenment. Hey, this is something amazing. I want this. So I practiced driving more in that state when there's not a lot of traffic around, just that mindless state. And just feeling that the kind of beautiful feeling of kind of oneness and relaxedness. But then I was living on my own, and then the kind of shit hit the fan. In that experiencing that place of no mind became very scary. And I remember, particularly nighttime was very challenging. And I was so scared of facing this that I would watch the television until it, unbelievably, then finished around about 12 o'clock as a distraction. And then the experience of this emptiness, nothingness, disappearing, feeling I was dissolving, which brought up terror, actually, I realized afterwards.
That's quite common, isn't it? I think, the stories I've heard before of people who've had some sort of spiritual awakening is that in the initial thing is like, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But there's often a sting in the tail, and I'm hearing there was a sting in the tail.
Absolutely. So I actually slept on the sofa for 2 or 3 months. Couldn't go to bed for some reason. Two duvets on top of me because I was just in a cold sweat. I was literally in terror. And
What were you frightened of? What was the terror about?
well, I'll say a little bit more.
Yeah, sure.
About that. But also, it also fascinated me. It fascinated me. Here I am in my own home, in complete terror of something that was happening internally rather than something external. It was bizarre and really curious. And I couldn't go to sleep until I faced it, guess what you'd call the dragon. And that dragon was experiencing myself dissolving and disappearing, just losing my whole identity. I think that was part of the terror. It was losing my sense of self and sense of identity. And I had this vision of this abyss, deep, dark, black abyss. And here I was on the edge. And I had to, and I knew to get to sleep, I had to go down to the bottom of this abyss, night after night. And when I did, it's like jumping off a cliff into complete blackness. And I got to the bottom, and then there was light, and there was peace. And I was kind of accepting this new state of being, which was just very peaceful, light, empty, no identity, no sense of self. And then I could get sleep. And I repeated that process every night for probably about 2.5, 3 months. So that was the peak experience. Felt like I was going mad a lot of the time. In my daily life, I was extremely disorientated. I remember reading, I couldn't find much that was describing what I was going through. Couldn't find any person that I could talk to about it, which I think made it a lot more difficult. I did find a few books. There was Gabriel Cousins' The Rainbow Diet. Didn't really agree with his dietary recommendations, but he described this experience. Also, one of the Alice Bailey books, the Initiation, Human and Solar, described it in detail. So these were the kind of things I held on to reassure myself that this was a normal thing to happen to human beings, and that I wasn't going crazy.
It's quite an interesting thing that it's normal because it's so far outside most people's normal, or maybe people have these experiences and don't talk about them.
Well, I think it's rare that I think it's rare for people to go through it. I think a lot of people go through this more gradually. It's when it's because it hit me, and I've talked to quite a lot of people since. Who I see are going through a similar experience, because I'm seeing a lot of clients and students. And occasionally there's someone who's going through a similar experience, who I just love to help, because I know it feels a very lonely experience.
Yeah.
In many ways, it feels a very lonely experience. It feels like something you have to go through. Nobody can hold your hand. You have to go through the experience yourself.
I think that's right, but there is something about some people. I mean, me, for example, I had a sort of visions of the devil when I was in my 30s, and I found a Buddhist monk completely synchronously, and studied with him for many years as a result of this experience. So he did, in effect, hold my hand. But I'm hearing that you had to resort to books, but there was no one out there you could go, "What's going on for me?"
I couldn't find anybody, and it feels like you absolutely to have someone to who knows what's happening would be very reassuring. So some years later, I was in Thailand and with a group, and we were visiting a monastery, and I saw this young woman walking through the forest. I could just instantly relate to that state of no mind and just awe, but just looking at everything. totally present in the moment. And I thought, wow, and I felt so she was so fortunate. I felt so good for her that she was in this context where people knew exactly what she was going through, um, which I hadn't had.
I think that's the other thing when we have to hide away from our experience. It's almost like, you don't know whether you're having a psychotic experience, a spiritual awakening. You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to frighten people, but also it's like I suppose what you became was quite shut off from people in this time.
Well, it wasn't something I could really share with people very much because, my need was to be understood. And I couldn't find anyone who understood. And just to kind of go back, I'm sure a lot of people go through this opening, but it's often much slower. It's 3 years of meditation or being in nature or whatever their particular path is. So I'm sure it happens to many people, but much slower. It's when it happens kind of suddenly, it's a bit shocking.
So how did you find your way out of it? How did it have its say with you, have its way with you effectively?
Yeah.
And what brought you through it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I remember reading one book which described the experience of the yo-yo effect. And it's what it felt like. It felt like there was this totally new sense of the world, presence. And then there was my kind of normal material kind of sense. I was looking after my kids regularly and still running, teaching and so on. And of flicking between these two. And, my night, during the day, one of the things that helped was just getting on with very practical activities, which helped bring me down. And then I could then I can deal with material reality, earning money, driving, cooking. And then there was this other state, and it felt like they were a long way apart. And every night I was lowering myself down with this, having this experience.
And you had no nights, so you didn't have any time off for good behaviour, effectively.
No, it was every effing night for about 3 months. And it was like, these two different experiences were really separate, and I bounced between the two. But gradually, the more I, every night was pretty much forced to go into this more different state, altered state, they gradually became closer together.
So the altered state became the everyday state, or integrated into the everyday state.
Yeah, became integrated. So I could be, as I am with you now. We're doing a podcast. I'm in this material reality, and also that other sense is there as well.
And I know you are able to tune in, because you've actually done it for me as well. You're able to tune into something beyond our everyday earthly reality, and a bit like a medium, bringing through understandings of people who've gone beyond, or of something beyond our everyday earthly experience. Say a bit about that.
Yeah. I didn't know whether you wanted me to
go
there or not.
Yes.
So one of the things I did, and then maybe I'd like to get back a bit more to the kind of internal experience through that process. But one of the things it did for me was gradually learning to, it's quite easy to be in that state of no mind. And then, and it feels like that produces a lot more sensitivity and increased perception. Because when your mind isn't busy, then you can really be looking at what you're looking at, feeling what you're feeling, what's in front of you. And I started becoming aware of some of my past lives, of spirits, and I kind of developed that. So at times, experiencing my sister passing on, my father passing on, other people passing on, and finding that I could relate to them just as they left the body, and afterwards, and feeling the stages that they went through, and what kind of help that I could give them, or sometimes days or weeks afterwards. Often when people pass through, there's still things troubling them, and it's just like counselling someone in the body. It's just resolving things so they can keep moving forwards. So it felt like, I really enjoy that work, because it's quite a thing to leave this body and then get stuck and not be able to move on where one needs to move on.
I don't know if you've seen the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I'm sure you know of it anyway, but I don't know if you've looked into the precepts behind it. But it's very similar to what you're talking about, actually.
Yeah, and I did read it a long time ago. I don't read a lot. I kind of use my own experience a lot. Something else I did, which was just in meditating, was going to the end of my last life, and then going through my own death and passing on, and all the different stages that happen. Being in the room, being close to the body, wanting to, it's a big thing to let go of one's body. It can take a bit of time. Some people can't let go, and they stay around for years or decades or centuries or millennia even. They're trapped and they can't move on. Usually it's a few hours. And then one moves on to a higher level, welcoming committee. So much help and love and assistance. Getting to know your way around, meeting old friends, family. And then the time of facing one's karma. Not in a punishment way, but in a helpful way. Because this is the intense classroom we're in down here.
Certainly is an intense classroom, there's no question about that.
And then, it doesn't finish. I quite often laugh when people talk about when people die, they say, rest in peace. Fantastic if people can die peacefully, feeling peace. But the work continues on the other side. So the idea that there's peace on the other side is relatively, it's less intense, but we're helped to look at our most recent life. What did we learn? What did we mess up? Who did we hurt? What can we do to repair that now? Etc. Then a period of freedom, then the preparation for coming back, which is another whole kind of series. You go through another series of steps. So that's kind of really, really fascinating. It just gives me a much deeper appreciation for my life and life, life on the planet, and why we're here.
I think what's quite interesting is that a lot of people who talk about past lives or reincarnation, all that sort of stuff, can be quite disconnected from their bodies. And in fact, you work intensely with the body, you work intensely with people. You have a very strong practice, both with groups and with individuals, of working with Shiatsu and macrobiotics. And so you kept yourself grounded, as well as being something of a mystic as well.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate that, Malcolm, because sometimes I feel like I spent my whole life trying to get grounded, really. I think I was in my late teens and 20s, and then I started opening, and like a lot of people, we start opening, and then all of our past starts coming up. And it feels like I've spent the last 40 years really trying to get grounded. So I really appreciate it. I love it. I love talking about spirituality from a grounded place. It's, when this first happened to me and I was in my mid-30s, I'm getting enlightened. There was that arrogance, spirituality plus arrogance, which there's a lot of about. And, spirituality, opening spiritually, is just completely and utterly normal for human beings and an everyday occurrence to tens, hundreds of millions of people around the planet.
I think what I see a lot,
and it's nice just to stay grounded with it. Yeah, this is all happening, but it's nothing to do with my need for identity or ego or whatever.
And of course we are on the earth plane. A lot of people who, because I ran this series which called Alternatives for a long time at St James's Piccadilly, and we had some very profound speakers there, but we also had a lot of people who were what is now called spiritual bypassing, who professed spirituality, but it was almost as a way of escaping from the world.
Yeah.
And I think our job, as I see it, is to be in the world, but not of it, as a quote from Christ, actually. But to be in the world and to do our thing in the world, but also to have an awareness of other realms.
I completely agree. I think when in my 20s and early 30s, I was very attracted to what sometimes called more transcendental approaches to spirituality, which are about getting out of the body and getting out of your emotions. And for me, and I think for most people in these times, I feel we want to open that. We want to open this. We want to open these upper chakras, and then we need to do the work, which is being on the planet and in our bodies and in our emotions. And I would say, really, now my main work is on the emotional for myself.
Yes.
Because
say more about that. Emotional meaning what?
Emotional what? Well, I'm just going through it. I'm just going through. Well, I had a 3-year relationship which was just amazingly loving, passionate, full, deep relationship. And also we challenged each other to hell with all our patterns. So my childhood fear of speaking up, speaking the truth, getting whacked, which then made me withdraw, anxious, not want to tell everything to people around me, to my partner. My pattern was to keep a bit hidden because it was safe.
Yes,
but it made a mess of the it was not helpful for the relationship.
I think relationships strip us naked, don't they? In so many ways, which I've seen again and again for myself and in others.
They can do. I mean, this was with a beautiful woman who was really after the truth and honesty. So it was very demanding, and also likewise around the other way. We both grew enormously through a lot of pain, and unfortunately it's now finished, and I'm going through a lot of pain. And I think one of the biggest teachings for me in life is any physical, emotional, spiritual pain is always a gift. There's always a learning.
Yeah.
Just as effing painful as it is, it's also, there's gold in this. So that I think is very transformed my life, because we all experience a lot of pain. And if we can realize actually it's inevitable and there's always a gift in it.
Yes.
It kind of lightens life.
I think the other thing I saw, one of the gifts that I saw that you got from this relationship was that you became sexually awakened. Mm-hmm. And I watched you rejuvenate yourself. It's almost like something in you got engaged and you found this bodily joy. I've seen you very much, you felt very monastic to me as a person, that you're very driven by what you did.
Yeah.
And there was good relator as well, but something in you got awakened at a sexual level as well, which I think was profound for you.
Well, it wasn't any sexual, it was just getting it back into my body. It was just...
Right, yes.
I've had a lot of monastic past lives, and so that's very strong in me. And so that was, it's a very strong impulse to me to live that way. But it feels that really this life, this learning for me in this life is mostly about being in my body and creating loving relationships, developing loving relationships with family, friends, partners, which means being in my body. So a peculiar thing happened about 15 years ago where I couldn't dance anymore. It was just so weird, because I used to love dancing when I was young. I just couldn't dance anymore. For some reason, it just left me. And this partner was very embodied. So she helped me really embody, helped me sexually, helped me to dance, just helped me back in my body, helped me get in touch with pleasure, with tantra, which is a path to spiritual opening through pleasure, among other things, and really open myself. So she was an utter gift to get me back on my path instead of keep escaping into monk-like self,
Yes.
hermit-like self, which just makes me miserable.
Yeah, of course.
Makes me miserable. Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of rich experiences in your life, and
Yeah.
you said you talked before. You mentioned something about growing up that you would sort of you'd keep quiet because of fear of being hit or other things. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, just a father who was in his 3 to 5 year old a lot of the time, enraged and stamped, and he wasn't physically violent, but he was a big man, a lot of anger. So me and my brother, sister, mother, we cowered, and adapted to having this 3 year old who was 6'3" tall, um, you know, um, letting off a lot of anger. One other thing I'd like to do is just kind of finish off the story a bit.
Please do, yeah.
Because part of the reason I want to make this is that it was so scary, and I have so much sympathy for people going through the same experience, and it just feels just a complete story a little bit.
Of course, please do.
Might be helpful. So there was that 3 months of terror and kind of gradually bringing these two states together. Gradually, I got this new sense of identity, which was just a kind of presence. It's something I couldn't describe in words. It's just like a buzz, a hum, a presence in me. So then I felt, okay, well, this is who I am. I'm not a father, a healer, a shiatsu therapist, etc. But I'm this, and that gave me something to hang on to. And that lasted me. I found meditation essential during that time to keep experiencing this other state and bringing the two together until I could just be in both simultaneously. A couple of years later, even that sense of presence started disappearing.
Yeah.
And then again, I found meditating was essential to, it's like now if I just pause, it's just like I have no sense of self, and it's just everything is as it is, and it's just like I'm made of the same stuff as you, the floor, the tree, and it's challenging to experience that. It's on one level, it's challenging to experience that. It's also beautiful. It's very calming and peaceful. Peace is a valuable thing. So that's kind of where, just to kind of complete the story.
Sure.
That's where I'm up to. And I just want to say, eventually, I discovered a book, The Stormy Search for the Self by Groff and Groff, who describes.
Is that Stanislav Grof?
Sorry?
Stanislav Grof?
Yes.
Yes.
Who really describes this whole experience very, very well. So that's the book I recommend to anybody who feels that they're going through this kind of experience.
But of course, Grof was very instrumental in exploring altered states of consciousness, and also of seeing that people who are described as having psychotic breakdowns were often having spiritual awakenings, but were drugged out of them.
Yeah.
Fortunately for you, you weren't drugged out of your awakening.
Well, I just managed to hang on. It felt like I was, a lot of the time, like I was going crazy. I experienced that I could have one thought that would then completely occupy my mind for hours, which feels like going crazy. But from that, I learned that I'm totally responsible for all my thoughts. And to some extent, thoughts are generated in different ways. They're generated from emotions, and I'm still working a lot with emotions. But in the end, we're responsible for all our thoughts, and we have a choice around what thoughts we have and we don't have. So it was, which was a very interesting realization.
Yes,
that I needed to choose at times. I needed to choose my thoughts and not be kind of prey.
I think what you described as the sort of like the no mind state, where the constant humming and the chatter that goes on in the human brain is switched off for a while. It's quite common when I've looked at people who've had spiritual experiences. It's quite common to see that actually something becomes very clear, and the background hum goes away, and then it's much easier to see things in a different perspective.
I think so. I think it gives extra clarity. I'm just trying to think of the first book of the Tao Te Ching, um, which talks a little bit about that. It's like when you can really empty your mind, it's like you're looking at things. Well, the whole, I've just loved Oriental medicine and philosophy, since I was about 24. They're looking at things from above. In the West, we tend to look at things from material, from below upwards. They look at everything from above. When you can empty your mind, then it feels like you do see things much more clearly. Of course, we're always deluded in certain ways.
Yes.
It feels like I see myself more clearly. I can identify when I'm talking to someone who's just passed on or a spirit, and I get a lot of guidance from spirits, which is really, really handy. But it takes a fineness to differentiate those other voices from my own, to be clear. And I think it makes me more perceptive as to other people's emotions, feelings.
Yes.
Where people are at as well.
And Ramdas saying that just because someone's dead doesn't make them wise. That we often, if we have connection with something outside of ourselves, with someone who may have passed on, and often there can be a delusion as well. But clearly, in your case, you've done a lot of exploring around this, and so you are blessed with having wisdom from outside of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, the more I explore the spiritual dimensions, the more I laugh. Because, for example, we often think, oh, God, I had this amazing idea. I just woke up this morning and had this amazing idea. God, I must be amazing to having these amazing ideas. Now, actually, what the spirit world, we have guides, and they're trying to contact us because they want to help us. And so, just when we're in that space between sleep and waking up, where our thinking mind hasn't got going, there's a space. And oh yeah, I'm just going to get this idea in right now. And some of the greatest ideas on the planet really have come from the spirit world.
Yes.
When they just kind of slip them into a place when people are receptive. So I just find that really fun, because we think we're so great as human beings.
We do.
We're so creative and we make all these amazing things. And the spirit world is so much richer. The amount of wisdom in the spirit world is just amazing. And I'm sure many of us tap into it. We may not be aware that if it's a certain spirit or something we're talking to, but just we go quiet and things come to us from the spirit world.
I often feel like when I'm running groups, it would be easy for me to go, God, I'm brilliant. And I used to do that as well.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yes. But now what I recognize is that actually, if I can get out of the way, something can come through me and then magic happens.
Absolutely. And that's the spirit world. And there's probably half a dozen guides in the room when you're teaching, because there is. I've watched other people teaching, and it's like those guides, and they're just channeling energy or ideas or perceptions through us.
But it's funny, as soon as I sort of go, oh, what a genius I am, it disappears.
Yeah.
Hubris gets in the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the spirit world really works. Everybody works together. We have such hubris as human beings.
Yeah.
And it just creates so many problems for ourselves in the world, and you can just see what's happening in the world right now with hubris.
So where do you see yourself going from here? So you've set up a very profound school of Oriental medicine. You've become one of the leading macrobiotic teachers in the country. Where do you see your path leading you as you come to your eldership?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be 68 in July.
A mere child, potentially, but
yeah, I thought you'd pull round. Well, I've always been very enthusiastic, very energetic about teaching and helping people, and I thought it'd just go on forever. And actually, I'm finding, I have less energy. I have a lot of energy, but I'm having less, and I think partly from my last relationship, it feels like my learning is to take care of myself.
Yeah.
I really want to go on running at the International Macrobiotics School. We run a lot of self-help classes for people who just want to be well, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Great cooking school. And also run a 3-year training course. I wanted to delegate a lot more work to other people. I want to be, I'm sure you probably exist. I want to do the things which I really want to do, and I don't want to do any of the things that I don't want to do.
Very good. Yes.
That feels like one of the biggest things for me at this time. I want to make a lot of videos. I've got about 3 books I want to write when I can find the time. And I just want to have a lot of fun and enjoyment and enjoy my children, my nephew, family, a lot as well. Being in nature, taking good holidays, taking good care of me, leaving behind that old monkish habit of self-sacrifice.
Yes.
Which is such a delusion. I sacrifice myself for God or spirit. It's creating a division. It's creating a division that somehow spirituality is out there and I'm not worthy or whatever. I have to kill myself in order to serve something else. It's division. So it's not true spirituality. Yeah, I really want to live that spirituality, looking after myself, enjoying myself. I want to enjoy myself all the time, every day.
That's a lovely idea. That could sound very hedonistic, but I know in your case that's not what you're saying, is it?
No, it's not. It feels like I move more towards that, but at the same time, I really
you're about rebalancing, aren't you?
But I really experience pain as well. Part of it is really allowing myself to experience pain.
Yes,
emotional pain.
And that can often be the great awakener as well, the allowing the pain to have its way with us.
Well, it's one of those sod's laws with life, that if we resist pain, we generate more pain.
Yes.
And if we face and let the pain go through us, then it leaves us and we are kind of strengthened and wiser for it.
So we're coming towards the end of our dialogue today. It's been brilliant talking with you. And the question I usually ask my guests is, what's the dragon you've had to slay? And I'm not talking about beating up poor defenseless dragons either. I'm talking about finding the place where we've had to find something in ourselves to shift our lives. What's the dragon you've had to slay in your life?
Yeah, can you say just a bit more? Something I've had to slay, or
so it's almost like root up, bring it out by the roots, and not allow it to drag you down. Something where you've had to find something that's elevated you, find something that's actually brought you to a state of more consciousness.
Yeah. Well, what immediately comes up for me is this lifetime feels like a turning point from a lot of lifetimes as monks, priests, not having children, often not having partners, and really re-entering life. I have 2 amazing children, and an amazing nephew and family, and I've had some amazing partners, and I'm looking forward to my next partner, and I really want to explore loving relationships, and being in this world and experiencing love and pleasure in this world. That feels like, as I want to slay that hermit life.
That's lovely.
That's what I want to slay.
Because often when I hear people talk about, they want pleasure, there's a sort of a blind sort of longing for happiness, upliftment, and an avoidance. And that's not what I'm hearing with you. What I'm hearing is that you've spent your life almost avoiding that part of you that can flourish.
Yeah, suppressing, avoiding, thinking that was the right thing to do. And there's a lot of spiritual teachings where, it's a technique. The trouble is there are all these techniques that great spiritual teachers, male and female, have taught us. And then we make it into a bloody religion.
Yeah.
So yes, to experience spirituality, sometimes it's really useful to be on our own and somewhat detached from our physical, emotional, mental self.
Yes.
But then to make that into something you do your whole life or for lifetimes or for millennia, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just, we can do whatever we like. There is no creed that we have to do. And in the end, we have to make up our own mind what our next step is. And it might be to experience spirit more strongly, and it might be to experience having our feet on the planet.
Yes.
And learning how to relate to other people. I mean, what bigger challenge is there than learning to relate to other people?
I mean, from my perspective, I think what I see is that we're all in service to something, to you can call it divine, you can call it God, you can call it whatever you like, but we're in service to something. And the joyful acceptance of that service also means you're not just sort of like blindly trying very hard to be a good person, but you're trying to live the whole of you, your fullness.
I agree. I think the learning for me is that being in service is not to become self-sacrificing.
Very good. Yeah.
Which is a kind of false spirituality, as I was saying. It's to enjoy my service, which I really get so much from, and also really enjoy nourishing myself in lots of different ways as well.
Lovely. Oliver, thank you very, very much. It's been lovely talking with you, and we've had some chats over the years, but this is a whole different ball game as well. So much appreciated.
Always interesting to talk with you, Mark, and I'm really happy to help out with this.
Thanks a lot.